Sure. Everything's possible.
Yeah, so I didn't know if it was okay for like both halves to not really match.
Absolutely. We're going to look at that other posture next.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Help me out.
Yeah. Because this posture here doesn't get hamstring pulls. We don't tear our hamstrings, not this person. It's this person. This is the hamstring. Oh, I tore a hamstring. Well, of course you did. All right. So adduction for this posture, the only way to get space for the pelvic structure to roll over the top of the femoral heads, which are the thigh bones, for this to roll forward over this in this movement is to make space, to get the adductors out of their role of pulling in. So the way to do that is with the antagonists, which would be the abductors, abductors. So abduction is moving out from midline. These two movements, adduction and abduction, are called coronal plane movement or frontal plane. We are sagittal plane movers. All day long, we're moving in the sagittal plane. We're walking, we're sitting down, we're standing up, we're lying down. It's all sagittal plane movement. Yeah, but we're also built to move in the coronal plane. We're built to abduct and adduct. We're built to do that. And if you dance or if you do a lot of yoga, then you're moving more in that plane. We're also built to move in the transverse plane, which comes January. Is it January? Yep. It's spinal twisting. Next month is back bending. That's also sagittal plane. But the body is built such that when you make movements in your life, they're not meant to be just in one plane. What would that be? Uniplane, monoplanar. They're meant to be movement in 2 or 3 planes. And the most sophisticated movements are triplanar movements. Trikonasana in yoga is triplanar. Interesting poses. The complicated movements in life are in 2 or more planes. But the truth is, when we do monoplanar or one plane movement, sagittal plane, we're meant to bring in frontal plane actions. Like, oh, for God's sake. Okay, so here's what I mean. If I go to bend and pick something up and I'm only using the muscles that are moving me in the sagittal plane, those would be my quadriceps, my gluteals, my core, my back muscles. But unfortunately, that's not enough. We're also meant to be using abductors and adductors. And the use of abduction, because my abductors are strong, which is, you could say from here down, it's the outer line, gluteus medius, down the outer seams of your legs. When those muscles are strong, they, as soon as I start to go into a sagittal plane movement, my abductors are widening my hip structure to give me the space to do that. If not, my pelvis is stuck. So this person who's always in adduction, of course they can't come forward. Their abductors are completely asleep. They're inhibited by the overactivity of the adductors. And so they're like, so what we've got to do is build the strength and intelligence of the abductors. In my classes, we do so much abduction because for so many people, abductors are really weak. And I think if you go to any PT, probably chiropractor, osteopath, OT, they will tell you that so many spinal problems, hip problems, even knee problems. The people I work with knee problems, somebody came in this past week, everything about her tremendously painful knees came straight out of the fact that she had absolutely no strength in her abductors at all. None. So, how do we go about this? Let's take a strap. This is a chair exercise I teach to people a lot because people sit in a chair a lot. And when you sit in a chair a lot, your abductors are asleep. They go to sleep. So this is just a little hello, wake up for the abductors. Why? Well, so that over time, when they wake up, they're awake for you in your forward bends. So every time you go to bend forward, you are secretly widening out from midline as you bend. That means your hip muscles are taking much of the responsibility. Everything we're doing is taking responsibility out of the spine so that we're not constantly bending forward and loading the spine and then loading the spine again. And the spine is just loading and loading. But we're using the strength of our hip muscles. We're using the strength of our pelvic floor, our deep abdominal wall, and our spinal muscles. So the spine, when we forward bend, ideally is light. It is simply riding the wave of the movement with no pressure, load, stress, pain, zippo. Okay, let's step through the loop. Everybody make a loop, step through, and bring it so I like to have it a few inches above the knees. And you want the knees to be hip width apart and the feet hip width apart. And if you just give a little baby press out into the strap, that's abduction. Yeah. And you want it such that cinch the strap enough that when you do that, the knees don't go wider than the hips. Yeah. And now when you do that and you press out until the strap is taut, feel what your feet want to do. Where does the feet, how the feet want to change in their weight bearing? Does anybody feel that? Yeah, that's right, Chris. So could you keep the inner edges of your feet down as you press out? Yeah. And so what does that mean that you're actually doing when you keep the inner edges of your feet down and you press out? Reach for your block. Let's answer it by experiment. Put the block between your inner knees. How many blocks do we need? When I was doing a lot of training with Judith in the early years, she'd say, bring 4 blocks, 7 blankets, 2 bolsters. I laugh when I see you all, we go in with 2 suitcases like we were on a big trip, you know, these roller bags. Okay, so first of all, hold the block because it'll drop out here if we do this. Don't think about your feet, just press out into the strap. The block would drop, wouldn't it? Okay, and feel how the weight goes to the outer feet. Now, stay right there, stay right there. Just press the inner edges of your feet down and feel how your inner knees return toward the block. Could you feel it? So in other words, when you press out in abduction and also keep the inner edges of your feet down, you're also adducting. Yeah, you're doing the inner and outer line. And to make that more clear, and we do this in my classes a lot. I think this is in one of my mini classes. We do a lot of sacral and psoas stuff in those little mini classes. If you hold the block, now press out into the strap and then hug the block as you're pressing out into the strap. So keep pressing out and hug the block. It takes some effort.
That's hard.